All right, welcome back to another episode. Trades Talk here. Maggie Wymore with my co-host, the one and only Justin White. And today's episode, we got a lot packed in here. We interview Cliff Savage, the CEO of Service Leaders Systems. It's very hard to say multiple times in a row, but it's a great organization providing insights to hiring, retaining, building systems around your people within your organizations. And Cliff shares a lot of great insights on what they're doing and the success they've seen through the systems he's implementing. Justin, what did you think?
Yeah, guys, this episode's going live late April, I think. So we're in the season of hiring. We're in that ramp up season, and it's a great time to think about attracting new team members. But I would say even more important than that is retaining and training the people you have. So sometimes in the season of hiring, we get so focused in bringing on new people and trying to onboard them properly that we kind of tend to just forget about everyone else that's worked for us for the last 5 years. So it's important that we think about all of that and take into account the training and retaining of team members. So we really cover this whole gambit: attracting, onboarding, training, and retaining. And that's really Cliff's whole, his whole thing that he does. His consultancy is that cycle and trying to make sure that you are a little better at that than when you start working with them.
Yeah, the investment into what, as a business owner, the investment into what Cliff provides and offers is one that I feel like is a no-brainer. His whole philosophy is built off of this service first leader, and being how you can be a better service first leader, focusing on serving your employees, serving your clients instead of serving yourself. So a lot of great insights to share today. Let's go ahead and dive into our conversation with Cliff.
All right, guys, we're here with Cliff Savage, who's the CEO and founder of Service Leader Systems. And we're excited to dive in all about employees and people, really how to hire, train, retain, and help that top talent stay top talent. So, Cliff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Excited to be here with you and Maggie.
Well, Cliff, we know quite a bit about you already, but we want our listeners to get an idea. So just give us a quick background. Who's Cliff Savage? What's Service Leader Systems? And what can they learn about you?
Yeah, so my background, just kind of starting things off first off, I've been around the contractor life since I was a baby. I don't remember any of it till I was 2 years old, though. And that's what I think I remember, right? Seeing my dad drive off in his work van. When I was 2, he started his own electrical contracting company. I've experienced that life, the long nights and the early mornings and the weekends and all that stuff. But for me, my career started out not wanting to just go straight into college and debt, right? Not knowing what I wanted to do exactly, not knowing where I fit in, and having some great opportunities to get started in manufacturing instead. Because I was like, torn. Do I go work for my father's business? Do I take over his business? Is there really a place for me? And I helped him on and off throughout, summers when I was out of school. And we worked a lot more when we were doing motorsports. So he was a huge help in us and our success in racing. But I was like, I don't know if that's it. And so I started venturing out of manufacturing and kind of found my own way, and still was very passionate about business. And so started dabbling into helping other people's businesses on the side. Started a pet sitting dog walking company myself because it was, low expense to start up, easy to scale because not a lot of people were taking it as seriously as I was with their
Yeah.
systems and processes. And I sold it after the second year to the manager that I hired and promoted. And then, I got back into really just wanting to help other people optimize their businesses. It's just, I'm a troubleshooter by nature. And while my dad troubleshoots like electrical systems and whatnot, I like troubleshoot like business systems and people. And so, that's what landed us here today with a service leader systems company and really trying to help people, number one, but knowing that is leveraging and setting up the right systems to help them.
Yeah, one of the things such an awesome story. And I think that people, especially in the trades, are the systems. People are the necessary material to achieve anything in the trades. So initial question for you is, starting a business like this, probably an uphill battle, especially getting your name out there and getting recognition, brand recognition in the trades. So what are some things you did to like initially get your credibility and what you're doing out there and build up this brand of yours?
Yeah, so definitely an uphill battle, right? When I first started getting into the idea of, okay, I'm going to go into business and just help other people's businesses, I had no idea what business coach or consultant or any of that stuff meant, right? I was just doing the work. Like I didn't have a title, I didn't associate with it. And then I started Googling. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody wants to be a business coach. Everybody wants to be a consultant. And there's a lot of valuable ones out there, but then there's many that aren't. And so number one, yeah, you gotta figure out how to get people to trust you. They got to know you and understand you. And so I was like, well, let me start with my current circles, right? I mean, that's the best thing to do. My pastor, back when I was sharing with him, getting off into this venture, really trying to get myself established. I knew business, I knew marketing, I knew networking and everything. But he's like, hey, go read Truett Cathy's book. Truett Cathy of Chick-fil-A. And it was literally his book about how he went from like these two little diners to the massive, name that is Chick-fil-A. And he shared that it was just be faithful over one customer and have that customer spread the word and get them to invite others to come in and just build from there. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. Right. You got all the time in the world. Might as well pour every ounce you got in that one customer, give them the best experience possible, and then figure out how to repeat that scalably, sustainably. And so that's how I did it. I reached out to the people I knew right away. Some people, that I share with them what I'm doing. They're like, hey, can you help me? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And then, yeah, we just kept building on it from there. And then, of course, you use those testimonials and say, hey, I've helped such and such in this type of business. Let's see if we can help you. So it just snowballed from there.
Nice, man. That's a great response. And I like how you can actually, anyone can take that methodology and
Hmm.
apply it to consulting, but also to the trades.
Yep.
If you're just getting out and you're starting a business and you just have one customer, just that customer is your world, do everything you can to make them happy. And then, hey, if you can get 2 referrals from that one customer, you just
Yeah.
doubled your business.
There
And
you
then,
go.
and then you just keep doubling.
I've
Yeah.
heard from Alex or Mosey, if you can't get referrals because people don't want to share, you've done something wrong. Whether it's your pricing, most likely it's your customer service, your fulfillment, something's off. And so go back and ask them and tell them, hurt my feelings. Take it apart. Let me know, because you're only gonna make things worse if you're lying to me and say, no, it's great, but I don't want to refer you.
Part of the reason I go there is because of that customer experience. They're so kind, they're so nice, and just it's not always like easy to come by. And so definitely a reason that I'm a repeat customer. But getting back to like the initial idea of building your business and this methodology that you use to build your business, I have a feeling that this is also how similar to the methodology that you train your client. So, well, whether it be getting customers or in making customers happy, or employees that work for those customers. So building and retaining that employee base.
Mhm.
Is that something that translates into your coaching and methodology for hiring and retaining talent?
Yeah, absolutely. And people come in to help with one thing, and then they're going to ask for help in a lot of different areas. Hey, can you do this? Hey, do you know someone, or some resource? So yeah, definitely. It all comes back to the serving people first. That's why the company's name Service Leader Systems. Yeah, we're leveraging systems. That's our focal point. But number one, it is being, it's leading others by serving them first. Right. And so that reflects in every ounce of your investment in the company, from your marketing to your fulfillment, taking care of your employees too, right? If you take care of your employees right, they're a pleasure to serve you. They're, have a smile, and they're going above and beyond to get you the sauce you like and things like that's going to leave a positive impression to the customer. But if the leaders don't take care of the employees, they're not going to care as much to put in that extra effort. Everyone's going to feel it.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm hearing if you treat your employees really well, they'll treat your customers really well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they are your business. They're your lifeblood. You're
Yeah.
responsible to take care of them, not the other way around.
So, Cliff, tell me a little bit. Your business is Service Leader Systems, and coming from manufacturing, in your background, systems are everything in manufacturing. You have to have everything documented and dialed. But why is it so important to have systems when it comes to your people?
It's really to help one, once you learn the right way, you can repeat it over and over again. It's not trial by fire and guessing every time, because if you don't know the right thing to do, if you're not prepared, if you're having to waste too much time and energy, that's affecting your people, right? Whether you're trying to hire someone, you spend all this money and time and energy and people to find somebody that's worth hiring that actually shows up, but then you're not prepared to onboard them. You're not prepared to train them and nurture them the next 3, 6, 9 months. You failed them essentially. And so, one, we know as leaders, as business owners, obviously we're scaling our businesses because we're not doing everything ourselves. People are a part of that, but equipping ourselves and our teams with the right systems, makes that a lot more sustainable is my focus, right? If we can sustain it, then we can choose to scale it or, for other people that want to sell their business too. But really having systems is key. The problems you've already faced, the questions you've already answered, document that. Put that somewhere that you can go back to, that the others can go back to it, rather than having to say the same thing over and over again. Have that resource for them, because then they're more empowered too, and they feel more confident in their work. So yeah, it's all about helping others, and that's what systems are for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's a great answer. When we talk about systems and documentation, one thing I find a challenge with is documenting it and then being able to access those documents. Or when we find a good system that works, let's say onboarding an employee, because I think that's just so critical. And maybe we can talk a little more in detail of how you recommend people go about that. But before we get there, how would we document a good system? Once we figured out something that works and we want it to be repeated and sustainable, what type of documentation tools can teams put in place for their employees?
I learned the importance of documentation early on in my career, because when I first started in manufacturing, as a young buck and getting in there, right away I saw things how they should be and how things were, and trying to share that with others, and they just didn't get it, or they didn't want to listen or whatever. And I got frustrated and share with my dad, my frustrations. He's like, "Did you write it down for them? Did you show them the difference from day 1 to day 2 to day 10? No, you just talked to them once, you got this thing out there. Maybe they're visualizing the same thing, maybe they're not, right? In the Toyota production system, they call that going to the Gemba. You need to look at the same thing you're talking about, right? And so that documentation became imprinted very early on in my life. And so that's, to me, why it's so important to find the right systems to house that stuff and to be able to easily document it, right? We use a lot of different tools. One of the biggest ones that I leverage, for even training, my teams, we find a new process, we find a bug, we need to do this, we need to do that internally. Things like Loom, great tool, super easy to use, record videos and share them. You can even edit them, transcribe them, stuff like that. So that's a great way to go through a process, document it, share it with the team, even get their feedback. I'm a huge proponent of Google's workspace tools. I have a Google phone. It's not perfect, but I have their recorder that transcribes all my thoughts, everything I say. Our Google Meet that I do with my clients, same thing. Similar tools like that. Some clients use, Microsoft, right? That's everything's local servers, local computers. Others are cloud-based completely, which is great. So there's a lot of options out there. The main thing is just what is the most user-friendly, right? That's why I asked you, do you want us to kind of figure out the specs, right? We need to know the specs. Because
Yeah.
if it's not user-friendly, there's support, right? When things mess up or we have questions to maximize using it, right? Just like learning on what CRM we need to buy. Those questions are key, because if it's difficult, if it doesn't make sense, then no one's going to use it. And you have to think about, upper management might be making this decision, but who's the end user? Is it the front line? Is it middle management? Well, what's their demographics? Are they able to use technology easily? Is it a little bit more difficult for them? You're going to have to make some compromises on what you're going to use for them if you need something a little bit more simple versus something that's very robust but very intimidating too. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to go with that, but number one is getting the scope of work to figure out who's involved and what's going to be the best fit, because there's a million options out there.
One of the areas in my business that we've really invested in this year is onboarding new employees and training and documenting all of these processes. And
Yep.
we've actually just onboarded a tool called MindTickle that allows us to store training tracks, and then it records like calls that our team does through Zoom and all of these things. That houses them in one place, so we're able to tag it and then create a path to onboard and like future train in the future new employees. So that I definitely recommend MindTickle. We've had a lot of success with it so far. I don't know if you've heard of that one, Cliff, but we're a big MindTickle fan here. Another one that I use quite often is scribehow.com. I don't know if you've ever used Scribehow, but basically for someone in the tech space or someone who's doing like those CRM activities,
Yeah.
what it allows you to do is just like create it. You can go through the activity and it creates a whole SOP document about
Yep.
the clicks
Step by
you gotta
step.
take and whatnot like that. So I'm a big proponent of technology and tools like that, but I want to share the ones that we're currently using. So in your opinion, what makes up a good onboarding process? Like what, besides just the documentation of processes and standard procedures and company culture and all that, but what makes up a good onboarding process for a company?
It's really all about making them feel welcome. Right. And so, and one, getting feedback of your your new hires and your current employees and learning what you could do better to improve your process because there's always room for improvement. Some of the main things that we tackle and get our clients to focus on is communication. I'm a huge proponent of communication. We leverage the DISC assessment in many areas of business, from leadership, team building, sales, marketing, obviously candidate screening and sorting, as well as onboarding and supporting them, because communication is so important. We found the more that you can communicate up front about company they're stepping into, aside from the culture, like you said, but the company they're stepping into, who they're going to be working with, what they're going to be doing, but then also the opportunities they have. I found a lot of times from my experience in onboarding and seeing others, there's a lot of, okay, this is what, almost like the job descriptions too, right? This is what you have to do. This is what's required of you. And then at the bottom, maybe there's like, this is the benefits for it. And maybe we'll put the pay in there. So it's like, it's screaming, you're working for us, not we're working for you. And it just, one, it doesn't stand out. And two, it doesn't give the new hire the warm and fuzzies. The more that we can communicate what their support network's going to look like, the opportunities that they're going to have for them to thrive and grow and really go as far as they want, right? They don't need to rise to leadership, but they can be the best they can be in their position. They become a trainer in the position, right? And lead others, develop others. There's so many ways you can skin that. And so, but if a lot of times we don't share that stuff. We talk about the company history, talk about me, but we don't talk about the new hire. Just like when you're selling, you're not supposed to just tell how great the company is and how great our team is. Yeah, that's important. You're preaching to them, and they're not hearing you talk to them and say, "Hey, I hear you, I feel you." So the more you can make them feel welcome by clearly communicating all that's there for them and really nail it down. I mean, most people don't even have an onboarding timeline, right? Hey, this is what you're going to do day one, day two, month one, month two. And so they're just like literally getting, I saw something on Instagram, like Humorous Resources. I don't know if you'll follow them, but they have some funny posts about the employee market and their perception of companies. So I use that as feedback to see what people were saying about us. And it's like the onboarding process was throwing somebody through a window.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, I think onboarding is just such a great opportunity to connect with that team member early. You talk about DISC and using personality profiles, what have you, to understand the person, what their needs and drives are. And one thing I've thought of is some people would love on their first day to go out to lunch with the whole office. They're like a DI or whatever, right? And they're all outgoing and I think maybe Maggie and I would probably fit into this category. To other people who are more introverted, like that sounds like a living hell. Yeah, Cliff, how about one-on-one meetings or one-on-one lunches, like for the next 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Would be so much better. So I think we have to understand it's not just having a great system, but also not a one size fits all system. It's like giving everybody in your company the same size shoes. What's your take on that? Like, how do you utilize this to take the onboarding, not just here's our system, here's how we onboard, boom, 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 but how do you take it to the next level so you can really make that onboarding plan fit the team member coming in?
I love that example too, Justin, because you're spot on, right? The systems are meant to serve the people, not to squeeze the people into the system, right? And there's a place that you can have, starting points and templates and cornerstones and whatever, but it's not fixed. It's dynamic, right? It's going to evolve. It's going to change based on the person. And yes, to your point, speaking on the topic of onboarding, the biggest thing is why we arm our clients with the personality styles. And obviously we focus on DISC. I'm certified as a coach with DISC. There's a lot of other examples out there. People don't use us, so they want to use something else. That's apart from our services. That's up to their election. That's part of our program. Because to your point, we are armed with this data. Like as soon as they get through stages of screening, right? If there's like 2 or 3 people who are like, oh, which one we pick? We'll give them a DISC assessment. We'll tell them this is to help us make sure. And we tell them on the front end too, that will happen because we want to know this is the position for you, that you're going to thrive in this position. It's not because of your skills. It's not because of the pay you want. It's not because you think you'll be good here and you're going to try and make it work. This is going to be a sustainable position that you're going to thrive in. And so I take that very seriously because I've seen and I've experienced my own mistakes of putting myself in positions that my personality was not meant for that. And I struggled. I would even say I failed miserably. I made it through, but to me, that was a failure because that was a poor decision on the front end. And so companies need to educate their candidates on that too, because we want them to thrive, right? We don't want them to just suck it up and try and survive a couple months, maybe hopefully a couple years and just die inside. Like they need to be amazing people going back to serving our customers. right? If they're excited about their work, if they want to get to work and pick up that phone every time it rings so they get to talk to someone new, right? They're gonna they're gonna feel that on the other end. But if they're like, I want to help the company, but I don't want to answer that phone, it's gonna be a problem. And everyone's gonna feel that. And so same thing with the onboarding. Once we have their profiles, we can customize the onboarding experience for them and arm everyone with the knowledge. Their leaders too. Like the leader has to take the assessment. So then they see what their leader's like. They're not just kept in the dark and, oh, you have my information, but I don't have yours. No, everyone sees it. So everyone can learn that it's about better understanding each other and working together so we can celebrate together. And so that all that customization goes into the onboarding process, everything else as well. But obviously talking about onboarding right now.
Yeah, getting that fit right off the bat with the new team members, I think so important. And I've interviewed people who are let's just say they're a career salesperson. And it just seems like every 2 years they're leaving the company. It's always someone else's fault. And I start to dig in, I realize this person hates sales. Like they're actually really good at it. Their numbers are great, but they hate sales. They go home so tired. They wake up tired. Their families feeling it. But they're such a good performer on the actual numbers side that they continue to get promoted, and they just think they're a salesperson. And then you realize they're really more of like a customer service. Like they should be on the back end of the process, helping customer success rather than be on the front end of sales. So I think as interviewers, we really have to challenge ourselves to identify people. If just because they've been in this career, that doesn't mean they're necessarily a good fit from let's just say a disc profile standpoint. How do you identify that when you're going through these interview processes and even during the onboarding? Maybe you have to make a decision there when someone is stretching a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and you can pretty much set your watch to when they're going to end up leaving.
And I've seen that. I've seen same thing, same example, especially with the sales, right? Because it's already cutthroat. It is like that is a specific personality. I mean, all of them are really at the end of the day. Some have a wider range of variations, but no, 100%, Justin, you bring up a great point. I have an example of a roofing company where we went through a scenario just like that. So they were initially hiring for one position. Immediately, there's another position down the road they wanted to hire for. But when we got down to it with the certain applicants and their personality styles, similar thing, right? One of their personality styles was perfect for being the front desk receptionist, getting all those calls coming in, right? Very, ID type of person. We got to get them structured, right? We got to have everything nice and organized and systemized so they don't miss any questions. But they would love to be answering the phone and communicating with people, right? And so we had that one candidate. The other candidate was more thought-oriented, introverted type, more of like a supportive, contemplative type. And we're like, you both got great experience. They interviewed great. What do we do? I was like, well, you guys have another position you're trying to open up, right? You're trying to free up your lead service coordinator and bring in an assistant, right? Like, yeah, I was like, that position, you're working with people once you get to know them, right? And they have a lot of recurring customers. You're doing more troubleshooting and having to think. You have to be more organized, and there's a lot more logistics and planning and documentation involved. I said, that'd be perfect. Just split them. Put the DI up front and put the SC in the back. That sounds great. And they advise that to the candidates too. And like to your point, Justin, you brought up a thought. If there's a candidate that their skills are screaming, they're successful in this position, regardless of their churn, right, history, but their personality style is saying something different, I would advise them, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is our suggestions to you. Maybe you would be better in a different position. Maybe you'd be better as an estimator, right? You don't need to go door knocking and doing all the sales calls, but you can go out and do the estimates, right? You're still involved with people, but on a much more concentrated level. Maybe that's a better position for you. And a company needs to either be able to, if they have the flexibility, look at opportunities like that, maybe now or down the road. Or me personally, I would have loved that for a company to give me a suggestion, for them to give me their expert advice on what I should do versus thanks for applying, but no thanks, and crickets, like they have now, once again, you're going the extra step, right? For your employees, for your clients. You're doing the same for the candidates. Word of mouth is going to spread about you, and you're being proactive about it now.
I think a lot of this has to do with poor interview processes. Like if you're identifying candidates for the wrong position or not giving great feedback, and I could go all day about the interview process. One thing I wanted to point out was, a lot of times salespeople, especially young salespeople and young customer service people, get intertwined. And it's because they're both really good, honestly, at handling objection. I mean, in customer service and in sales, you have to be able to overcome that objection really quickly. Whether you're better fit for sales or better fit for customer service, the differentiator there is more situational questions. And the relationship builders, the ones who are going to want to, hold your hand and see it all the way through resolution, those are your customer service people. Whereas the people who are just wanting a quick fix, like move past it, almost like deal with the issue and move on, those are your salespeople. And so one way I've overcome this, because I see a lot of people from my department, which is fantastic, but they'll start in sales and they'll move to customer service. And I've realized that the thing that I'm not asking them is situational questions. So how would you handle this specific situation? And I think if we ask people more questions like that early on, we'll identify, okay, are they a customer service fit or are they sales fit?
We have an ebook out called The Attraction Blueprint, which helps break down how we would implement strategies and systems for our clients. And for those that may not want to afford us or think that they can do it on their own, that guide actually has a 65-page PDF called a screening guide. And it's almost like a writing prompt, but it's also a menu that people can select from. Because, I've had companies that we've never had screening questions before. What do you mean, screening questions? And so, but it was a writing prompt to your point. Hey, you need to ask a situational question. What is
Right.
that going to be? Right. And so there's some guides to help people with that, because they may have never thought of that and realized how important that is until after the fact to someone like you.
I always joke with the vice president of sales at Aspire. He's interviewed probably more people than his entire direct report leadership team combined.
Mhm.
However, he is the worst interviewer out of all of us. And and I'll say this directly to his face, and it's because the situational questions aren't there. He's there to build. We use color codes. He's a very big yellow on the color code about the fun and like building up and getting people excited about the interview. So he's an integral part of the interview process.
He's definitely in the process. Yeah.
But he's not the one that's going to ask those situational questions. So it's funny how each person probably has a different part or role in the interview, but training your interviewers is just as equally important as having, good candidates.
All meshes together, right? We talk about culture fit and all that stuff,
Right.
but we forget about the people that are already in the company that affect that. It's dynamic. It's not static.
Yeah, I will definitely be getting that ebook and looking through those questions for sure. I can't help but notice though, this poster you have on the wall behind you. So is there a little story about there's a victory lane poster on the wall
Yep.
behind Cliff right now. So is there a little story behind that, or what's going on with that picture?
Yeah, the little team that could finally broke through. And so you can't see the other face of the person I'm hugging. That's my twin brother. We used to race here locally at Langley Speedway in Hampton. And I got started back when I was 18. Underdogs, bought a junk chassis, didn't know what we were getting into, had no clue about motorsports, had no clue about setup or anything like that. And fortunately, like I said, my father's a huge support with that. Yeah, he put in a ton of work, ton of money, ton of time. I was putting in a ton of, learning experiences, leaning on others, having some coaches, if you will, just at the track. And yeah, we finally broke through in 2010. My first win, we won by 17 one thousandths of a second, closest
Wow.
margin of victory at that racetrack in history. And it was after a complete like side by side battle the entire race with the championship leaders. The whole time to stay with them. But a lot of people were happy for us. A lot of people came and congratulated us afterwards. But it was so cool just because of, even though really it felt like a lifetime, right? It was only 2 years after we started, but it was a struggle to try and make it work. Are we going to stick with it? It's frustrating. We were thinking about pulling the plug because we were just like mid pack, backpack. We never were up front, and the stars just aligned that day. And we just, I love this quote. I'll prepare, my chance will come. I've logged that quote a little away 10, 20 years ago, so my memory's starting to fade. But that quote is legitimate to racing, to business, to everything. I'm going to still put in the work today, even though I'm not seeing the fruit of that. And so that was a cool, memorial of that experience.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the feeling of getting a good start and running up front. And that whole time, so I raced motocross when I was like
Oh, nice.
from 16 to, 2021 until I completely shattered my wrist. And then, every time I try to get back into it, I broke another bone. It's pretty brutal. But at the end of the day, that feeling of getting a good start, getting up front, running with the leaders, everything starts clicking, right? You start
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you were running up front, you were just almost like something else was in charge and you were just so much faster than you ever had been?
It's insane. It's insane. It's so surreal. Like I still remember to this day, like I'm like half of me was like, what is going on? And the other half was just very instinctual, like, okay, I got to move him
Yeah.
up the track just enough to kill his momentum so he can't get a nose in front and, pull in front of me. And those things that we race called pro wing champ cars, we have to draft. We have a big wing that slows us down and we're heavily underpowered. So we have to rely on at least one or two other people. And so it was me and my brother and the championship leader and his teammate. And we were just the whole time. And so I had to do what I could to slow him down, but, not rough him up because I race clean. I don't want to
Yeah.
win by racing dirty. And yeah, that whole time I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? Like, it's a crazy feeling.
It's like your brain is moving 5 times faster than your body and you're thinking about. It's funny how you can actually think in those races when you're in the moment. You can think about so much at one time. It's really amazing how our brains go into this hyperdrive, right?
It's insane. Tapping into the
Yeah.
source, man.
But I do think there's something about it. Like I always noticed when I showed up to the track and I like, shit, Trevor's here, Troy's here, all these like pros are just practicing on a Saturday. And I'm like, I don't even want to unload my bike because these guys are so much faster than me. But you
Yep.
do, and you get out there, and then all of a sudden it's like you're putting in the fastest lap times you've ever put in. And it's because you're surrounded by these people who are so much better than you. You step your game up. And I think you can tie that back to the team within a business. Like if you have people that are around your team who are smarter, who are better than you in certain areas, and you're able to work together in another analogy to like draft off their speed and momentum, you can get so much further as a team. But I feel most people in today's business and work life are so focused on being the hero and they're so focused on winning the championship, so to speak, that they don't collaborate well. They actually try to steal stuff from other people. It ends up
Yeah.
slowing them down. What's your take on that?
No, 100%. And yeah, I mean, I even struggled with that back in the day when we were racing because, I was driving to get to like NASCAR or something. And I'd actually that same year I'd gotten into a driver development program. And so that was starting to take off. And so I was very like gung ho that I have to perform. I have to win. I have to compete because at the end of the program, someone would win a free ride with their super late model team the following season. And, like I'd only been in the sport for 2 years. Everyone else was in it since they're 5. So I was like, I had ground to make up. But when I was trying to put myself first, that's when things would go bad. That's when, my teammates would get frustrated or I wouldn't communicate well with, my dad, who was the crew chief, and I would get frustrated and make mistakes. And so it's just, you go slow to go fast, right? You have to be more
Oh, man.
methodical. Yeah. And you have to be more in tune with everyone around you supporting you. Cause yeah, at the end of the day, that's what I hated about those things was I had to rely on someone else. It was the
Yeah.
most humbling thing ever because it wasn't my driver skill alone because the pedal was to the floor and I couldn't go any faster. Someone else had to push me or pull me. And if anything, I tried to do on my own to pull out, you fell back. The air
Wow.
stopped you. And so that was a huge, 18, 19, 20, huge life lessons there, many years until we sold things in 2016.
Yeah, a lot of discipline in racing too. There's constant defeat, constant rejection, constant breakdown. I mean, especially as like what we would call a privateer, coming in and
Yep.
you got like similar, I'm sure you got the big trucks with the nicest stuff. Like, and I'm going against the kids who have their dads pulling up in the, 50-foot fifth wheel with the,
Yep.
they got 3 bikes. They got the race bike, they got the practice bike, they got their backup practice bike. And it's like, they're 15 years old. You're like, what? You got $100,000 into this setup.
At least.
Yeah, man. I think you just got to keep your head down and keep pushing and your day will come, like you said. Yeah, great quote. So I want to kind of take this in another direction. We talked a little bit about attracting. We talked about onboarding. I want to talk about sustaining and training and keeping those key employees. Once you do have an A player
Yep.
and you're like, oh my gosh, this person is just, we would be lost without them. You don't want to become so desperate and so dependent on one person, but how do you really build a team that wants to stay at your company? We call it like a destination company. Cliff, give us a little background or a little insight on how a company would go about becoming a destination company.
Yeah, absolutely. when I was starting to seek a solution to that problem, to that question, right? I was helping a Fortune Global 500 company. It was a manufacturing company, but they were venturing off into new business arenas, getting outside of their old manufacturing ways and trying to venture off into aerospace and things like that. And so they had a massive problem though. The part of manufacturing that I was helping with was very manual labor, very hands-on. There was no automation. It wasn't like the other departments they had. And so they were very agreeing to that. And their biggest problem was good or bad. They were at the whim of their employees. If the employees wanted to show up on time, if they wanted to do good work or not, if they wanted to take advantage of their PTO and their sick leave and, push the limits and just do what they wanted to do. And the employer just kind of had to throw their hands up and hope they came back, really pressed me to find a solution and say, well, this is dumb. This doesn't make sense. And it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And so, with attracting, training, and retaining, right? It's like a three-legged stool. They all support each other, they all complement each other and can negatively affect each other if one of them's weak. So if you do a great job at attracting someone, right? You put a ton of money, ton of effort, first impressions, right? We all want to do that. But then you you have no plan or investment in sustaining that once they get past that first month, 2 month, 3 month, right? They're
Right.
going to go back out the door. Like you just wasted all that effort and time. And so some of the things, yeah, you got to definitely have it all together. So the point is, if you can build a system, if you can build this whole process where, for better or worse, because they're a great person, they have opportunity and they want to go somewhere else, or because they're a bad fit and they weed themselves out, you can't be at the whim of good or bad people leaving. And you need, just like clients, right? We need to always be not just attracting new clients, but putting ourselves out there. So when the day comes that either they want to reach out to us or we want to reach out to someone, we have a lot, better chance. And same goes for recruiting. And so the effort has to be all those pieces together. And so when you can really work on being intentional about your development, right? We kind of talked about earlier during the onboarding process, show them the opportunities, show them what's available to them, show them what they could do if they want to. There's the basic requirements and there's the, hey, you want more money? Here it is, go get it. Right. And we're going to facilitate that for you though, too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can communicate that to them, that you do want to take care of them. If they leave, so what? You've got the systems in place, just turn it back on, open the faucet back up. Like we're not supposed to be in the scarcity mentality where we're like going to do everything we can to keep them. Or, oh, we'll raise your salary, or, oh, we'll give you more benefits. No, that's not why they're leaving. And if you do that, now you're spending more money and you're working with someone that mentally is already checked out.
Yeah.
We got to get away from that. We got to put it back in our hands and be more proactive.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the best managers are ones who want their employees to leave them, not necessarily leave their company, but leave their
Right.
like leave underneath them, because
Yeah.
they are working to figure out what their goals are. If they want to, be promoted, move into a different position, get a higher title, get a higher comp. The best managers create that opportunity within that company to do that, and also have a backup plan in process. You're so confident in that person and what you're doing with that person to move them out of your organization, out of your individual part of the organization, that
Mhm.
you already have a backup in place for them. So worst case scenario, if they were to exit the company and entirely, you already have a backup strategy in place, because you're either working for a bigger goal within your organization, or
Yeah.
ultimately that person's going to check out. So you always have to have that backup strategy in place.
Exactly. And you're developing within, right? So you are tapping into future leaders, future people to replace them, whether it's just within the front lines or, middle, upper management. Like those people are already in the company. They know the culture, they know the expectations. But if you develop them, then they'll have more opportunities and make it easier for you to pivot when you need to.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is be left with no back replacement, because you've spent all time focused on one person, or, the status quo, and you haven't spent enough time like developing that next level of talent. Well, you've given us a lot of good stuff today. And, I think that there's a lot that people could learn by working with you and working with your company. Chris, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they wanted to learn more about what you're doing? And, what's the initial return on investment? Like, what does that partnership look like?
Yeah. So best way they can learn more about, what it is we're talking about. One, if they want to get the Attraction Blueprint ebook, it's on the top right of our homepage, serviceleadersystems.com. They can learn more about the services we provide, testimonials, work history, things like that, as well as my contact information is in there. that's a great way to get started. They want to learn more about kind of like what's in my head and what, goes out there online is, LinkedIn is where I'm most engaged. We post to all platforms, but that's where we're targeting, right? And really networking with other people and just trying to share more value because that's, they're seeking those answers. So might as well share it there. Cliff with one F, S Savage. That's my LinkedIn. But I believe that's on the bottom of my webpage as well. Go all the way down to the bottom, little LinkedIn sign. But that being said, we have this whole program, a 3-month program to help them build their attraction, training, and retaining systems. But we find a lot of the times too, it's great to just start them off with something smaller so they can take it in bite-sized chunks, really see if it's a good fit for them. And so we really direct people to just get started with that recruiting program. It takes a month to get everything set up. We go through a lot of strategies with them, a lot of coaching with them, but then we also leave them with the knowledge base and a lot of my lessons in coaching. Because kind of like to your point, Maggie, if I coach and develop them, whether it's the owner, manager, PNC person, project manager, whatever, and they leave their company, where did their coaching go? Out the door. And I don't feel right with that, knowing that they're paying for that and it's leaving their company too. It's not sustainable. And so while we still do that, we also have a library of resources that are literally, hey, these are our strategies, these are our coaching. Here's all the videos that we did together. This is yours. You keep it. Everything is theirs. It's their systems. It's their companies. We're just helping them set it up, learn how to use it, learn how to implement the strategies, and they can, go on their own and, catch up with us in a couple months, couple years, whatever. But it also gives them an idea of how we would do the other steps with the training retention because it's the same programs. That's the best way to figure out more about us and if it's a good fit for them to reach out to me.
Yeah, guys, definitely go give them a follow on LinkedIn. Cliff posts a lot of good stuff, a lot of good insights just to keep you sharp and all about this biggest problem and opportunity we have in our business, which is people. And I would just add the website's also easy to link to on the LinkedIn, but that ebook, I was just kind of skimming this morning before this call, and there's a lot in there in terms of, I think when you look at this, you're going to realize some of the things you're doing are outdated. And Cliff, it seems like your focus is always trying to stay ahead, trying to keep the newest, latest, and greatest ideas coming to the forefront and make sure those ideas win out at the end of the day. And as a sales manager, as a COO, as a CEO or business owner, we're so focused on trying to run our businesses, keep the financials proper and retain clients and obviously retain employees. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of coaching. I think coaching is just such a great way to get ahead. And if you're going to invest in coaching, a lot of people ask me, like, where would I start in coaching? I would say hire someone who focuses on people. If you get that figured out, then go and figure out how to increase sales. If you increase sales and you don't increase your talent pool, you're going to sell yourself out of business.
Yes.
Most businesses go bankrupt or belly up and close down because of a lack of cash flow or a lack of talent, not a lack of customers.
Yes.
So get the people figured out and everything else will fall in line. Great talk today. Really enjoyed it. I think this is going to, this is spring season for landscaping, spring season for trades. I think people are looking at hiring. I know we are. So this has been great timing. But Maggie, you want to take us home here on the trade secret?
Yeah. And we kind of preface Cliff for this, going into the episode, we always ask for your trade secret. So something that you want to share with our listeners that you've inherently learned through all of your experiences in life, whether it be racing or working in the trades, your dog walking business. What is your trade secret, Cliff, that you want to share with our guests?
People call me crazy. They see me doing a lot of walking all the time. Like after my lunch break, in the afternoon, in the morning, I do a lot of walking. And that walking time is just to think, to just get things out or just to listen to nothing because I thinking and planning all day long and there's all this information circulating. I do a lot of time to get away and disconnect and decompress. I don't believe people really truly understand. They feel like, you're taking your hands off the wheel when you do that. And I think it's the opposite. I believe I've had more clarity, more confidence, and I've been more precise with my decision making because I take so much time to step away. And it's not like vacation, like hours or anything like that. But it's a couple minutes to walk, a couple minutes to get away, take what I just took in, walk away and just chew on it for a little bit. That to me is so huge. And I think a lot of people don't do that, right? Because we're so urgent. Everything is like, we got to make a decision right now. Someone's telling me to do this. I feel like I need to do this. Or it's like, well, I need to get this done today. So I'm going to work as many hours as I can. I'm not even going to take a break. You are working harder, not smarter. And so I feel like more people should be outside walking and just thinking about things or just shutting up the brain and letting it kind of come up with what needs to come up next and going from there. Yeah, that's been huge, vital to our success these past couple of years for sure.
That's such good advice. I relate to that. I think our society is so overstimulated. I've said it a million times. I'm a mom of 3 kids. And
Mhm.
if I get in my car by myself, it's usually quiet. If it's like a 15-minute drive, because I just need to turn my brain off and let it recharge. So, and there's a reason that God made the world so big, and so that you can go outside and just have that air and like don't feel constricted to, the confines of inside of a building and inside of all of your thoughts and overstimuli that are happening in the world. So that
Yes.
is such great advice. I need to do it more. Justin, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, that was great, Cliff. I appreciate that. You never know what we're going to get on a trade secret, but I think that was a great reminder to just clear your head from time to time, especially before an interview or before a big meeting, right? Just like take 10 minutes to go for a walk, clear your head, come back, engage, come back, engage. I think that's such a missed opportunity is we're not present, we're not engaged, we're not focused because we're trying to do everything at once. Sometimes it's just a matter of shut the brain down for a few minutes. So I appreciate I kind of needed that today.
Well, thank you so much, Steph. We really enjoyed our conversation with you today, and we'll link all of the ways to get a hold of you into our show notes. But thanks again, and we appreciate it.